JH Bridge Cars. Well, today, as a change from welding and grinding and painting, it's time to do routine maintenance on the TR8. So I'm going to do oil and filter, check underneath, grease anything that we can, and we'll probably take it for a little ride afterwards because, got to make sure the oil went in right. Not that I like to drive a V8 car. Anyway, so let's get started.
So this is a 1980 Triumph TR8, and it's built to California specification, which means that it's fuel injected. It's got basically a Bosch fuel injection system as far as the components, but it has a Lucas computer, and all the Bosch components, even though they still have Bosch numbers on them, have Lucas numbers as well. This is the original color. It's platinum, which is kind of silver with a little bit of bronze in it. It has been repainted because years ago we were in a crash and had to replace some sheet metal in the nose. Both front fenders and the apron have been replaced with new parts from Heritage. The under pan on the front valance, the hood came off another car, and when I got it, it had a black roof. This one's mohair and it's blue, which I like better. And it changed the interior. It had a velour kind of interior, which is it was well worn and I didn't like it that much anyway. So it now has leather seats, solid blue vinyl, blue door cards. It had a blue steering wheel in it when I got it, and this is from Monolita, another new one because it was just too beat up. And we've also gone to Roto wheels. They're 15 by 6, I believe, and 205/50, I think. Yeah, 205/50 15 wheels, which are the same rolling diameter as the 13-inch wheels, but as you can see, they are significantly wider. And the car has 63,000 miles on it, which is why it's time for an oil change. Been down to Big Bear in Southern California for Triumph Fest back in 2011, I think. Yeah, 2011. So this is a 3.5 liter Rover V8, which is derived from the Buick V8 back in the early 60s, like in the Tempest and stuff. And it has fuel injection. So this fuel injection manifold is the same one they used on the later Land Rovers and all that stuff. But the fuel injector at the top piece is very different because the modern ones are kind of more, look like another rocker arm cover. But they still have velocity tubes on the inside of that, though they're shorter than the later style. This is a new Petronix distributor with the Petronix electronic ignition installed. It's made for this engine. And as you can see, it's got the Rover V8 cap on it still, the Lucas cap. And it's pretty much stock. It didn't have a heat riser or anything like that on it. Oh, we did change the alternator. It's a GM alternator from like a 83 Camaro, that style. I think they call it an SI or an S1 or something. Oh, you can't, it's tucked underneath here. You can't really see it. You might be able to see it from the bottom. But it still has its canisters, the fuel injection system, and all that. This is the air cleaner box. It's a really nice car. It's really comfortable. It drives well. It's got good power. It's not great power, but it's a 1980 car. In 1980, the TR8 was the world's 5th fastest production car. Number 4 was the Corvette of that year. So again, compared to stuff 10 years before, stuff 10 years after, I mean, not that it doesn't get out of its own way or anything, but it's, nothing like the crazy cars nowadays with 1,000 horsepower and stuff. But it's nice. Rides really well. It's pretty quiet with the wedge shape and the slanted back windshield. It is much quieter, even with a top up or down, than like a TR3 or a TR4 or anything like that. And this should have the large decal emblem that says Triumph and a wreath around it. But this is the 81 hood design badge, and I just like that better, and I found one, so I put it on because, hey, it's my car. had it pinstriped as well. Just something subtle, just kind of nice. The door guards are kind of goofy. They're following the sweep in the line of the car. It's not my favorite look, but it's about as good as it's going to get. If you run it straight across, it looks funny because the line swoops away. Anyway, let's get it up in the air and get the oil out of it. I think I forgot to mention that from the factory that they have the battery in the trunk here. So it's opposite from the driver to try to kind of counteract the balance of the weight of the driver a little bit. And of course it's a much bigger battery than there was on the TR7. So in the TR7s, the battery went right here. You can see the edge of the shelf, but they put the vapor canisters here because in the TR7s the vapor canisters are down there, which would be kind of tight for space. So this just kind of works out better. Does mean there's a long cable to bring the starter power up, but when I had it apart after the accident, I put it in a larger cable just to let the electrons flow a little easier. Also, this appears to be an aftermarket spoiler. It was on the car when I bought it, but it's kind of a soft rubber, but it fits really well. I mean, it's like it's designed for this car, whether it was or not, and it bolts through the bottom. It had a name on it, Roberts or something like that. It was a long time ago that I took it apart. And we also went to a power antenna that goes down because to keep the cars under covers, it's a lot easier to leave the antenna put itself up and down than me do it. And to keep on track, this sump plug is 1 1/8 inches. Not quite sure why it needed to be so big, but it is. So while that's draining, I thought we'd look around a little bit. There's the oil filter going to come off. There's the alternator. So that mounts exactly as a Lucas alternator of this style would. It's about 1 inch smaller in diameter, so that's kind of nice. It's a sway bar, McPherson struts. It's got bigger brakes than a TR7, so primarily they're it's a thicker rotor. And then dual exhaust. These are the cats, and they got shields. Someone put stainless steel from about here back. Wasn't me. Has a 4-link rear end. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Coil springs. We've got adjustable shocks on this one. This is a 308 ratio rear axle drum brakes. There's the dual exhaust. If you look on a TR7, you'll see the mounts for the hangers are on TR7s as well because they're both the same body. Oh, and I measured the wheels. They're 7 inches wide, so you can see a nice big chunk of rubber on the ground. There's a big difference. I've bought across this car several times, and I did it on the 13-inch wheels and on these, and it's probably 10 or 15% better traction sideways easily. These are plugs that come out, and I notice that every 7 that we've dealt with, right here the floor is pushed in because they try to pick it up with the jack right here instead of going up on this cross piece. So if you feel like there's not enough room for your toes when you're driving, take a look underneath. You'll probably find that's pushed up about 1 inch. It's a 5-speed manual transmission. It's interesting because it's a 4-speed box, and then in this little section here is the 5th gear. All aluminum engine, aluminum head, aluminum blocks. As you can see, this is a California car, so this is the rust you get in California. Obviously hit a rock or something many moons ago. And I believe we've upgraded to polyurethane in the rear bushings. Well, like I say, it's just a nice car. I am kind of tempted to get rid of the resonators because it's really pretty quiet like this, and these are pretty big mufflers. But I think that, and then I take it for a long ride and think, oh, it's kind of nice. The car's not droning away at you. So anyway, let's go pull the oil filter out of this and get the plug back in. This is the same engine. It's what's in my Rover. Well, the Rover's a 3.9 liter, but it's the same block. But there's a lot more room to work on this one, even though this is a smaller car. But then again, they really kind of built this thinking they were going to do this. So this should be a Napa Gold 1515 filter. If I remember correctly, the Napa filters are made by Wix, which are really nice filters. So I always put a little oil on the rubber seal so they don't tighten up too much. As you can see, this filter is pretty much horizontal, so there's no point in trying to put any oil in it, and I'm particularly fond of that anyway. I know lots of guys like to fill them with oil, but I just never have, and the manufacturers don't recommend it. So there it is. And so I'm going to use my wrench just to snug it up. That should be plenty. I'm certainly not a believer in crank it down as tight as you can. So that's the bolt for checking the transmission oil. As you can see, it's kind of hard to get at. It's 15/16. This ring wrench, which I've had since I was a kid, or a box wrench, and it's just right for getting in. You can do about a 1/16 of a turn. So it's down just a little bit, so I'm going to try and top it up. I basically feed it in, and I don't put much hook in that, so that I don't want it going way, because it's obviously going to have oil way down low, but just a little curve in it. Feed it in from the back forward. Kind of hard to do with one hand. Don't touch anything with the end. Put it in. And you can see that right there that that's dry, but if I put it in and put it down a bit, I don't think you'll probably be able to see that, but there's oil on the last 1/4 inch of that. So we'll put some ATF in. You can see this one on the rear axle is a lot easier to get to. It's still the 15/16. Yep. You can see I pulled that plug out and it's dripping already, so it's full. This takes gear lube GL4, it's in Quattro, and that's because these cars have bronze bushings in the axles, and GL5 is compatible with GL4. Doesn't mean it replaces GL4, and GL5 will corrode the bronze bearings. It's like sulfur or something, I don't know. That's some kind of an additive that will deteriorate them. So if you just need it to get home, that's fine, but you should get it out of there as quick as you can. And if you leave it for a time, you'll wind up having to rebuild your rear axle. So that's good. Drive shaft has constant velocity joints, so not much to do with that. And we like to take a general look around, make sure all the drive shaft bolts are tight, and when that leaking gobs of oil out of somewhere, just take a general look around. There isn't anything that grease in the front end. I did put needle roller bearings in the top of the McPherson struts, and this has power steering as well, so it turns pretty easy. Not bad for a 45-year-old car, is it? This car does not have AC. It does have dead bugs. And at the crash, the radiator got trashed. So this is a 5-row, I believe, upgraded radiator. Yeah, it hit right here. I got hit by an SUV, and this frame section is essentially folded back on itself. So they replaced this frame rail from here to this joint, and I actually found a factory frame rail. It's like 135 bucks. It was nice and inexpensive. And replaced the inner fender from the front of that tower to this front corner, and we're going to put a new valance in this piece here. And we already talked about the outside. Didn't get the windshield or anything like that, and then while they had it down, we repainted the whole thing. So it's great. I work with a body shop that would work with me, which was really nice. They said, you know, do as much as you want, and bring the car here, and we'll do as much as you want. And that's what they did. So I yanked the motor, cut off all the bad sheet metal and all that. They did the framework. They put it on the frame. The guy was an interesting guy. He was probably dyslexic. You know, he was actually very intelligent, but he didn't do well in school. But he was unbelievably good with a frame straightener. And when you talk to him, it's just that he has a reading problem, and the teachers didn't probably recognize it. Anyway, got it to within a 0.5 millimeter of perfect. So can't ask for much more than that. And like I say, they repainted the whole car. We had all the chrome we could get off, and you know, all the bumpers are off, and just everything I could get off of the car I did before they painted it. And that was 12 years ago or more. Really nice paint job. Guy did a wonderful job. Lakeville Auto Body in Petaluma. So I'm sure you're probably aware modern oils that are rated for new cars, like new being more than less than 20 years old, have very little ZDDP in them. And this motor is a flat temp motor, it really needs ZDDP. So they use Castrol 2050 because any 2050 weight will have more ZDDP as far as I know, because they're not rated for modern cars. But in addition to that, I like to put in a bottle of STP, which has additional STP and some magic stuff. But I've been running that for, I don't know, 15 years, and we've not had any cam problems. So maybe it's just luck, maybe it's this stuff, maybe a bit of both. But you know, that stuff's not very expensive. Why mess with it? So we're just about halfway between low and high, so I'm guessing that that's 1/2 quart down. So we'll just go basically put the rest of the bottle in. Well, I kind of ran out of time yesterday, so I didn't get a chance to take the car for a test drive. So it's a beautiful sunny day, and it's, I don't know, 60 degrees, 65 degrees. So I figure we'll give you a run, and I get to try out my new camera mount. Hopefully that'll be okay, because I hate to think of my GoPro bouncing down the freeway. They're all in one piece. And I'm wearing my new TR8 t-shirt. Oh, I'm not quite so new, but a present from a friend. Thank you, Paul. So we'll get this set up and we'll go for a ride. Alright, I just get buckled up because I couldn't reach the camera with the seatbelt on. And away we go. February 18th, 2025. Would have been my mother-in-law's 103rd birthday today. But she passed away about 3 months ago, so she didn't quite make it. Everything feels pretty normal. So I must have put everything back together all right. Brakes are working. Always a good sign. And I managed to get out before rush hour, so there's not too much traffic.
pivot, quick ride route, about 6 miles, but it's mostly 55 miles an hour. That's, you know, this is the worst piece of road in the whole section because they dug it up a couple of years ago. They didn't do a very good job of patching it. It's all vineyards now, but it used to just be open pasture land. They just planted these a few years ago. This is where they shot the drag racing scene on American Graffiti with the black 55 Chevy and the yellow 32 coupe. And around about here is where they drove it off the edge of the road, because remember it went down a little rise into the field. A nice piece of road. So it took a while to bleed out the air out of the radiator. You have to, run it up, and you have to get the thermostat open before it'll really get it all out. And it overfilled it just a little bit. It has an expansion tank, so hopefully if the last little bit of air gets out, it'll still be pretty good. We put, just visually put about as much water back in as we took out, or antifreeze actually, but really don't like to let the antifreeze go too long in this engine with all the aluminum and steel, so it had been a couple of years, that was plenty. It's not the fastest thing I've ever driven, but it's not bad. It's got a 308 rear axle ratio, but it always feels like the first gear, it's like, oh, why did I even bother? It probably used a 290 or something like that. This car is pretty light for the size of the motor. But I'm not sure they make a gear set that small for these cars. It's a standard Salisbury rear axle, so it's whatever Salisbury makes for rear ratios. And of course, at the time, they weren't really making automatic English cars, and if they were still 4 cylinders, not V8s. So, that they needed a ratio that would optimize the horsepower. But this one just feels like you overdrive first and second really quick. I noticed too that, I suppose most stock production cars in the last 500 RPMs, you really feel the power falling off because they put a smaller intake system than optimum for horsepower to get better mileage. So, it's like everything else. Everything's a compromise. It's either going to be something you can drive in lots of different ways, or something very specifically for low speed or high speed driving. Sure is a nice day today. I didn't even have the heat on. That's an F-type Jag in front of us. This is a golf course on the right, airport on the left. I also have a couple of good-sized function halls there for weddings and the like. Years ago, we went to some kind of a meeting for work there of state-sponsored building officials, fire department kind of thing. The subdivision on the right is one I did most of the inspections for. It's been there about 15 years now. I used to work for the building department once upon a time. I really like this car. It's peppy enough to be fun. It's manual. It's fairly civilized with power steering and power brakes, and it's not too noisy, and the seats are pretty comfy. People always surprise me to tell them it's got a V8 engine in it. I think everything that was made in England has like 1.3 liter 4 cylinders, and a lot of them did, but not this one. Fuel injection is really nice. I mean, it's a simple fuel injection. It's not tied into the ignition system. All it operates is the fuel system requirements, but it's just got a throttle position sensor, an engine temperature sensor, an engine speed tie-in, so it's basically like an electronic tach. And it's got a cold start injector, and that's what they call bank fire. So all 4 injectors on either the right bank or the left bank fire it simultaneously rather than da-da-da-da-da, which means that it always idles not quite as smooth as a sequential ejection system, but it's much simpler. It's, like I said earlier, it was mostly Bosch components as far as the injectors, the sensors, but the brain is a Lucas product built by Lucas to their specifications. And here we are back at the house again. So yes, that is a Volkswagen in the lot. It's not mine. We have a friend that's went home to Tasmania, take care of some business back home. She's going to be gone for a few months, so I asked if she could leave her car here so we could keep an eye on it and start it up now and then. She has her house rented out, so she didn't want to leave it there. And back home again. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and comment. And we'll see you next time. Maybe with more grinding and welding, because we got more coming up. See you then.